2. Check, check, check. Okay, I think I got audio now. Let's see if that works. I don't know if I didn't turn that on or if the batteries are dying, so we'll find out if I lose audio again. Welcome in, everybody. I'll start over. Today it is Friday, March the 10th, 2023. My name is Kerry Holzman. Thanks you guys so much for joining me today. Apologize for that little audio mishap. A super shout out and thank you to a few folks here before we get started. First and foremost, our good friend Buster, also known as Peter Laycock, who joins us in the chat. Thank you for your $20 super chat contribution, as well as your offline contribution, which was very generous earlier today. Buster says, good evening, Kerry and Marlena and everyone in the chat. All the best from Bonnie, Scotland, where the temperature in Edinburgh is 35 degrees Fahrenheit or 2 degrees Celsius. Thank you so much, Buster. Always good to see you in the chat. And I was just reading something about Duke of Edinburgh was the Queen's husband, Prince. Yeah, it's terrible being American. I can keep all this straight. King Charles's youngest brother got appointed to Duke of Edinburgh. Do I have all that right? Ah, nepotism. Just give this to my baby brother. All right, so anyway, I don't know how the people there in Scotland feel about that. But anyway, enough of the world news. Kevin Crowley with a $4.99 super chat contribution says, TGIF, yes, for sure. And Mark Gaines also, I believe Mark is in Ireland, contributes with 20 pounds. Always good to see you guys. Thank you so much for your super chat contributions. And of course, before the show, yesterday, Jefferson Creel submitted a contribution to help cover the shipping expenses for the computers we're giving away. If you've missed out on that, be sure and watch yesterday's video for all the details. There have been so many new mini PCs hitting the market now. I'm super excited that we finally are getting back to the manufacturing and distribution levels and the innovation levels that we were seeing prior to the pandemic, and things are starting to return to normal. Now, there's a pro and a con to the vast variety of mini PCs that are out there. And one con is that because of all the variety, you're all over the map on price and configuration. If, for example, there was one configuration and that's the only way they made it, then the cost of manufacturing would go down, driving those prices further down. Think like a console, like an Xbox or a PlayStation. You have very minor configurations. It's not like you can get a different CPU, for example. Mostly just storage options or how many controllers or specialty paint jobs, right? That only bring the price up, generally speaking. Now, imagine if all of these mini computers all conformed to basically the same case, the same CPU, the same RAM, the same storage. They could be even cheaper. But here's the thing. This is what blows my mind. You can start picking up these mini PCs. I've got one right here in the box. We're going to look at that today. You can pick these up starting at just over $100, and you can pick up a really good one, really decent one, for $200. You can pick up what is the equivalent of a mid-range desktop for about $400, maybe a little less than $400, $350 to $400, and you can actually replace a $1,800 or $2,500 gaming PC with, say, a $1,200 mini PC. And that's how incredibly powerful, compact, and inexpensive they've become. And there are so many manufacturers. I'm primarily focusing on 3 manufacturers on my channel. B-Link, AceMagician, which is also Camrui, and Minis Forum. Now, of them, Minis Forum seems like the folks that come up with their own designs, whereas, well, it's not fair to say. I think B-Link also comes up with a lot of their own designs. And then when we reach into some of the, like AceMagician, it seems like a lot of these configurations, very similar to AceMagician, can be found with other manufacturers as well at varying price points and with varying levels of support. So when I'm deciding which products I want to review, I always consider who the manufacturer is. AceMagician / Camrui is still pretty new to me. We just have to, I've decided because of the amount of product, because of how active they are in the mini PC market, they're worth investigating to learn more about them. As you know, that includes what kind of support they offer, what sort of innovation they continue to bring out to the marketplace, and those aggressive price points. Now, the link for today's mini PC, the AceMagician AD03, that's in the video description below the video. And then there is a link to the AceMagician website where you can buy directly from the manufacturer. Why would you want to buy directly from the manufacturer? Because I'm based in the USA, my links, when I'm talking about product, will point to Amazon. And just Amazon.com, the American Amazon. If you're watching from another country, if you're watching from outside of the USA and you want to order one of these, if you're interested in them, there is a coupon code that will work at the AceMagician website, and that link is also in the video description. It's a different coupon code. This coupon code is only available for 24 hours. At the end of the day today, the coupon code is no longer valid. Why? What makes this so special? Why, of all of the mini PCs there is in the marketplace, what drew my attention to this one? Specifically, it is the N95 chip from Intel, which is the latest 12th generation 4-core CPU. It doesn't get any fresher than this. This is hot off the presses, if you will. So that means you're getting the latest technology, and you combine that with a price point of just over $200, and you're getting 16 gigs of RAM? Yes. And 512 gigs of storage, which should be no need for anybody to upgrade that at this level. You should be able to take this out of the box, plug it in, finish the Windows 11 install. It is Windows 11 Pro on here, included at that price. And you should be able to use this, I would guess, an 8-year lifespan before it becomes too long in the tooth, if you will, becomes where the resources start to get too heavy for the machine to work responsively, right? As we evolve Windows and we evolve antivirus and PC security, we require more and more resources. And so what works great and fast today, just like the computer you had in 1998, isn't going to work very well on the demands of software placed on that 1998 computer today. The same can be said if you have a computer from 2013 or even 2010. You might be squeaking by with it, but it's on its last legs. So not because of the hardware failing, but primarily because the resource requirements of modern day operating systems and security software, and even software in general, it's getting easier to use. It's getting much more powerful, and as a result, it consumes much more resources, more RAM, more processing power, and as such, older machines simply can't keep up. So I thought today we'll take a deep dive into looking at the AD03. I got Cam Girl here, going to put her to work. We're going to unbox this. I have already taken it out of the box. I've already finished the Windows 11 setup, downloaded all of the Windows updates, and ran some tests on it. I ran, for example, Prime 95 for about an hour and a half, and it pretty much sat in the 75 degrees Celsius range right up until about after an hour. It climbed up to, I want to say, about 83, and it never got hotter than that. Now, normally I would not run Prime 95 for more than 20 minutes. It's an extraordinary, unrealistic test to simulate real-world usage of just somebody being abusive to this thing, just making every bit of the processor work at 100% without a breather. It's like seeing how long you can hold your breath. Okay, how often do people need to hold their breath longer than, a couple of minutes? So this is such an extreme test. Because it was running so well, I wanted to see what I could do to find its limit, and I never found the limit. Now, I've also not gone in and modified the BIOS away from the standard default settings. I understand that there are settings in there that you can boost performance, but it may come at a cost of heat and noise. So I'm not recommending that. If you want a reliable machine, just the way it is, it's plenty responsive, exactly how it is. With 16 gigs of RAM, in my opinion, there's no reason to upgrade the RAM. And with 512 gig of storage, I can't see any purpose in upgrading that. It should be plenty for your average computer user. If you're not your average computer user, well, you probably need something far more powerful and far more expensive to meet your needs. However, if you set your expectations to be reasonable, you'll see what an amazing bargain this is, because at this price point, you're getting a case, a power supply, a motherboard, a CPU cooler, RAM, storage, Windows 11 Pro, a VESA mount, some cables. There's no way you could build this anywhere near this price if you wanted to build one yourself. You're going to be probably closer to twice the price. So it is a significant savings. Let me just take a quick look in the chat here before we get started. So my thanks, once again, Jefferson Creel submitted a contribution for helping cover shipping costs on the PC giveaways. If you did not catch that video, watch yesterday's video. We have some PCs we're giving away. Be sure and watch the video from yesterday, March 9th. Thanks also, of course, to our good friend Peter Laycock, as we call him, Buster. And thanks also go to, I got to check my email now. Kevin Dara sent an Amazon gift card just now for $25. He says, greetings from Wisconsin, Kerry. Have a great show today. Looking forward to it as always. Well, thanks, Kevin. Thanks for your continued support here on the channel. And I feel like I'm forgetting somebody. Of course, our good friend John Jack Wilson. And come on, I know there's one more in here. Well, now I can't find it. But to everybody who contributes to support the channel, the giveaways happen because of the generosity of our community. And I just want to emphasize to people who are new here that the generosity is from the community. It's not necessarily from me. I'm just the middleman working between the two. We have an amazing community here. And the community, in my opinion, is the most valuable part of this channel. Not me, not my content, this community. And so if you're watching my videos, but you're not participating in the chat, you're missing 50%. You're missing half of what these videos are about. I encourage anybody watching these videos while I'm live, you will see a chat room to your right on most platforms. And in that chat room, just pop in and say hello. As long as you're a friendly, kind person, you are welcome in the chat, and no one's going to give you a hard time. If you give somebody a hard time in the chat, you might find yourself out of the chat. So the community is really about being supportive and being kind. It's a very simple thing, and it shouldn't be anything that has to be asked for. It should be the default for all human beings. But we don't live in times like that anymore. So we've been able to separate the wheat from the chaff, if you will. Show my age with that expression. By finding all the kind and supportive people who choose to voluntarily hang out with us here in the chat room, and of all ages, genders, religions, of many, many, many continents around the world joining us. So everybody is welcome. We only ask that you're nice. So pop in, say hello. No matter if you're shy or socially awkward, everybody is welcome in this chat room. And what ends up happening, and when it just tickles me to see it, is as somebody says hello, other people will say hello back. Somebody might say, how are you? Somebody might not, but usually somebody will say, how are you? And, oh, I'm good, thanks, how are you? And what ends up happening, and it may not happen the first time, but when you pop in, just say hello. You'll start to see people saying hello back to you that said hello back to you before. You'll start to feel more comfortable. You'll start to feel more like you're welcome here. I want you to feel welcome here as long as you're being nice. And then these virtual friendships start forming from people who otherwise would have never crossed paths in the world this big, perhaps living on different continents, who share this experience together and share an interest in technology and computers, and real friendships form. That is just the coolest thing ever. And, you know, as much as I can do to teach, bringing people together is something people have to do. I can't make somebody like somebody else. I'm not even sure I can make the introductions, but I can give you the platform where there are others that are like-minded that you are likely going to be friends with just based on how much you have in common. But it requires people to talk to each other in a kind way. It's that easy. All right, I think I'm gonna get ready to unbox this. So let's see. I got my Coca-Cola out here. Can't start the show without a bit of a drink. You got the camera ready? And let's see, I gotta find close-up camera input is right there. And was that up?
Almost.
Now?
We're good.
Okay, come on over. So we're using, you'll notice the colors on this camera. It's really amazing how little this camera is and how well it works, at least for close-ups. This is a Sony RX100 Mark VII, I believe. And the problem with it is, of course, because it's a compact camera, it can get hot really fast when you're filming with it and will randomly shut off. The battery life on it is pretty low because of how small the battery is, because the camera is small. And every time you have to power cycle it, the lens doesn't stay in a fixed position. You have to keep resetting it, re-zooming it in and adjusting it. So it's not ideal as a main camera for me, but what a fantastic close-up camera you're about to see. Now, the AceMagician computers all come into in a box that looks sort of like this. They're pretty plain. There's no picture of the product. Sometimes it can be even difficult to identify what's in the box. So they do tell us here with some information about what's in the box. Mini PC Intel 12th Gen N95 up to 3.4 gigahertz, 16 gigs of DDR4 RAM, 512 gig of M.2 solid state storage with Windows 11 Pro. I don't see the model number on it. Supports a 4K dual display with Bluetooth 4.2, Wi-Fi 5, and what does it say? Auto something? Anyway, that's pretty much all you get. It's a pretty generic looking box. Oh, on the back, here we go. Product AD03, that's what we're looking at today. Color is gray. RAM, ROM, this is wrong. ROM is like a CD or a DVD or a Blu-ray. That means it was written to once and can never be written to again. So this is not ROM. This should say SSD or storage. So perhaps a English translation issue on that. And then they make different plug types for different parts of the world. This has the US plug. Okay, and made in China. We open it up. Now I did repackage this exactly the way it looked when I unboxed it, except this wasn't wrinkled. It was perfectly smooth. So we start with our mini PC. Looking at the front of it, we've got speakers, microphone jack. We've got a USB Type-C. We've got a recessed reset switch. You'd have to use like a paper clip or something so that way you're not accidentally resetting it if the button was just something you could easily press by mistake. We've got two USB, where's my finger? Right there. Two USB 2s, two USB 3s, our power button, and some green sticker for some reason. The other stickers represent a QR code for something. Probably takes you to AceMagician's website. And then, of course, the Intel Inside Go Faster sticker. We have nothing but vent holes on this side and a Kensington lock option here. And as we come around to the back, we've got not 1, but 2 gigabit Ethernet LAN. Our power connector here is a barrel style power connector. We have is that display port? Yes, we have a display port and an HDMI. And then we have 2 more USB 2 ports. And yes, you can use both the HDMI and the display port at the same time for up to 4K resolutions. And nothing on that side. So the airflow is obviously going one way or the other here. And it's pretty squared off. For some of the designs we've seen have been a little bit more rounded. I don't know if that really makes any difference to anybody. And a lot of them have been black, whereas this one's more of a, it's still black. I think they're calling it gray, but it's an awfully dark gray or an awfully light black, I would say. So I'm going to set that down here on the desk. Let's continue to see what's in the box here. So if we lift this up, we have, let's just take this out. We have the owner's manual here in multiple languages. We have some screws, presumably for mounting this VESA plate. Oops. Yeah, there's a VESA plate here. And the idea is that you can mount this computer behind your monitor so you don't even have to see it. And if you do that, you're going to need a really short video cable. So they include a really short HDMI cable, which most people wouldn't use unless you've got this hung on the back of your monitor, and then you would run this from the back of the computer right to the back of the monitor, and then you don't have like 5 extra feet of cable you've got to figure out what to do with. And then here we've got a standard wall wart adapter. Take a quick look there on the voltage. Does that say it's 120 volts only, or is it an auto sensing to 200? Can you see? Right there, does it say 100 to 200, right?
100 to 240.
So with just plugging an adapter on this for different outlets, it will auto switch to accommodate the voltage of your country. But I would strongly recommend that you order a unit that's designed for your country so you don't have to put adapters on it. So I'm going to go ahead and put the rest of this stuff back in the box. We're going to plug this in and turn it on and get an idea of how loud it is and how responsive it is. So we'll get this out of the way. Just fold this up. Come on now. There we go. Now these 4 cores, these are basically 4 E-cores from Intel. These aren't the performance cores. Nor would you want those, because those would run hotter. And like I said, this thing really withstood some significant abuse of Prime 95 for about an hour and a half. And I think I have the files saved on the desktop that we can look at, screenshots of the results of the Prime 95, because there's nothing more exciting than running Prime 95 during a live video when we have to sit here and find something to do while it's running for, in this case, an hour and a half. So the power is a pretty short cable, just so you know. It looks like it's about 4 feet. I'm going to go ahead and give that power. I'm going to plug in HDMI. That's the display port. That's not going to fit. It's got to go over here. I need an Ethernet cable, although this does have Wi-Fi and Bluetooth. I prefer to plug it in. So somewhere on the floor in my nest of cables, I have, here it is. Ethernet cable. plug it in either one, doesn't matter. Both equal. And keyboard and mouse. I've got one dongle here for both keyboard and mouse. I don't want to waste a USB 3 port for a keyboard or a mouse plug. Okay, so I'm going to switch back to camera 1. Okay, you're clear. And then what I'm going to do is put myself up in a corner so that you can see me while I'm working on this. So what I'm about to do right now is turn on the HDMI input on the capture card, which says no signal because the machine is off and there's no video signal coming out of it. I'm going to tap the power button. It's just now starting up. There is a bit of, oh, it's got a little speaker in it that beeps. That's interesting. Let's see how long it takes to boot. That's it. It's pretty fast boot time. I'm just looking through your chat comments here to see if there's anything that I can clarify. So if we look at the Amazon description, go to the product page for this. I think a lot of your questions are answered there. I'd also encourage you to read reviews so that you're not just getting one person's perspective. Now, when it comes to upgrading this, I strongly advise against it. And the reason I say that is putting anything more than 16 gigs of RAM on an N95 processor is sort of like buying $4,000 worth of tires to put on your $500 car. It doesn't make any sense to me. Could you do it? I imagine you could. Should you do it? You should not. If you're the kind of person that wants 32 gigs of RAM and 2 terabytes of storage, I would highly encourage you to spend closer to about $400 to $500 on a mini PC that already comes equipped with that, or at least comes equipped with a minimum i5 Intel processor or Ryzen 5 AMD processor. Because throwing that much RAM and that much storage on just what is effectively like a Celeron processor is just very bizarre to me. Also, any amount of cost savings you are going to defeat the minute you have to open it and replace anything. So if you want the bargain, if you want the good, best value for your dollar, buy the mini PC out of the box the way you want it configured. Because if you buy it and then upgrade it yourself, you've already spent too much money, in my opinion. They make a wide variety of mini PCs. There's got to be over 100 of them out there. If you simply go to Amazon and type a search of mini PC, and just look at page after page after page of different Intel processors, different AMD processors, ones that are from last year or the year before, the newest ones that are coming out, varying sizes. This is a tool that is best purchased as you need it to be, not a project to convert into what you want it to be. Not that you can't do that. It's just financially prohibitive when compared to simply buying a different model or a different make that out of the box is pre-configured the way you want it. If you want the best price savings, that's my advice for you. Now, if you were to buy this today, and a year from now, you wanted to upgrade the storage or the RAM, different story, except to say that a year from now, what is going to be available at this price tag today will be much more for the same price. In general, you continue to pay about the same amount of money year after year for a new computer, but the new computer has a faster processor, it'll have more RAM or faster RAM, more storage and or faster storage, newer Wi-Fi, newer Bluetooth. Clearly Wi-Fi 5 is an older standard, but it's still supported. I wouldn't go anything below Wi-Fi 5. Bluetooth 4.2, currently Bluetooth is at 5.3. There is a reason why this machine is just a little over $200. If you want Wi-Fi 6E and you want Bluetooth 5.3 and you want 32 gigs of RAM and you want 2 terabytes of NVMe fast storage, you'll spend about $600. It's no problem. I mean, assuming you wanted that also with a faster processor, because on an N95, putting all of that on a little tiny N95 doesn't really make any sense. So you definitely want an i5 or an i7 or anything in that range or above. So you're going to spend 2 to 3 times the amount of money to get 2 to 3 times the amount of all those other things I just said. 2 to 3 times the amount of storage, 2 to 3 times the amount of performance on that storage, 2 to 3 times the amount of Wi-Fi performance, 2 to 3 times the amount of Bluetooth performance, 2 to 3 times. You add 2 to 3 times to the cost. So to say, can I get the $100 meal and will it include everything that the $200 meal has? No, it will not. That's not a reasonable thing to expect. You are paying less and you are getting less, except what you're comparing it to. So if you're comparing it to what's available today versus what was available 3 or 4 years ago, it's a very different perspective. In this case, you're paying less and getting way more than anything that's 3 or 4 or 5 years ago that was sold new. But if you're comparing it to what's available today, you're getting exactly what you're paying for. And even at that, it's discounted. So it is an amazing deal, but you must have realistic expectations. I often recommend people buy from Amazon because returns are easy. So if you're a very difficult person to please, if you're a bit of an elitist and you need the best, you're going to need to open your wallet and pay for the best. And when I mean the best, I'm not talking about quality. I'm talking about high-end processors that require high-end coolers. I'm talking about, the ability to add faster DDR4 RAM. All of that comes at a cost. And so to get the price point at this $200 range, there are sacrifices that have to be made. And I think they are very reasonable sacrifices for what I, as a technician in this business over 30 years, cannot believe they can sell all of this that cheap. And I further can't believe that there are people out there that think that's not enough, that they want to squeeze more out of that. And you can, but you will be the one who pays for that. So you're going to pay for it one way or the other. You can pay for it out of the box, which will be cheaper, or you can pay for it to then take it out of the box, open it up, risk damaging it, risk voiding your warranty if you damage it, to put in RAM to hopefully that's compatible, to put in a different NVMe drive that probably will be bottlenecked by the processor if you get some super high-end, high-performance NVMe drive, and create a big nightmare for yourself with giant expenses. If you want the best customer experience, you should buy it with the configuration you need. And if the configuration you need is $450 or $750, now you have an understanding. Is it easier for you to come up with that kind of cash, or is it easier for you to relax some of your demands? That's all it's about. Nobody's getting away with anything here. There's no secret loophole that's going to work you around that. It will always cost you more to upgrade after the fact than just getting it the way you want it, at least in the case of these mini PCs, straight out of the box. So just something to consider. And again, by ordering from Amazon, Amazon has a very easy return policy. You've got about 30 days to return anything you buy, most things you buy from Amazon, certainly these electronic items. And you don't have to have a reason. Doesn't matter why. You want to return it? The returns are free. So there is no risk in trying one of these out to see if it can make you happy. People are often blinded by benchmark numbers, and they can't decide. I guess they've never been taught how to determine if a computer is fast based on how you use it. They only know how to tell if a computer is fast based on what benchmarks tell them. And I think that's incredibly sad that they're unable to issue any judgment of their own as a human being, that they have to have the machine tell the human whether or not that machine is going to make that human happy or sad based on numbers on the screen that the human being just assumes are accurate and practical. I just think it's sad. Now, for people that are hobbyists and they want to chase after benchmark numbers, have at it. But for the rest of us, most people cannot tell the difference between a 500 megabyte per second SATA drive to a 7,500 megabyte per second NVMe drive. I have yet to find a customer that's noticed a difference. You see, you have to understand what the practicality is of having a drive that performs that fast, because there's nothing else in your computer or your network that can keep up, at least for 95% of the people buying these machines. Your network is going to be the bottleneck. Your USB is going to be a bottleneck. So anytime you're getting data from the internet, you're not going to get it anywhere near the 500 megabytes per second a basic SATA M.2 drive is delivering. Your boot up time will be about 12, 13 seconds, regardless if you're at 500 megabytes or 7,000 megabytes. It won't change, but by milliseconds. When you're copying files to or from this device, it's only going to copy files as fast as the data is coming into it. So where is the data going to be coming into it at 7,000 to actually justify the use of that 7,000 megabyte per second drive, other than specialty applications and games where you want your load times to be a few seconds faster? That's what we're talking about, seconds. And for every second faster you want it to be, you can slap down another $100. $100 per second. You want to go 10 seconds faster? Plunk down $1,000. We can get you some faster RAM, some more RAM, a larger, faster solid state drive. No problem. Spend the money, get the speed. What is the speed you're getting? Seconds. You are literally getting seconds. So this fascination by looking at benchmark numbers and reading these drive performance speeds, well, it's interesting information. It tends to be toxic information, because then people decide, well, I don't like that number and therefore this computer's not good enough for me. When in reality, if they never looked at those numbers and they just used the computer, I think they would find it very responsive and very fast to how it feels to use it. But everybody has a right to gauge things on science and to gauge things on facts, or to gauge things on using it and how it feels, to come up with their own human response that is not based on what some piece of software is telling them. When somebody is launching an application and it's taking forever to start, you feel it. When you're starting an application and it pops right up, you feel it. You don't need a benchmark to tell you if your computer is fast. If you do, then I would recommend to you, your computer is already fast. If you need a benchmark to define that for you, then clearly you don't think your computer is slow. It's almost like people are looking for a reason to be unhappy when it plays no practical role in actual computer ownership and using the computer for doing things with the computer other than running benchmarks. It's crazy out there. The mentality has gotten twisted. It's all become about numbers online. That's all people want to talk about are the numbers. What's the heat? What's the data charge? When you're using the computer, there's no reason for you to consider what the heat is unless the computer is crashing or shutting down on you unexpectedly. Otherwise, there's no reason to look at it. No reason whatsoever. Do you check your temperature every day of your body? Do you just put a thermometer in your mouth at all times to know what temperature your body is running at? That would be ridiculous, wouldn't it? Well, it's just as ridiculous to do it on a PC. Monitoring your data transfer speeds doesn't make any sense to me. I don't know anybody that would be copying files from a 7,000 megabyte per second M.2 into another internal or super high-end Thunderbolt 4 external enclosure where you could actually keep that pace up and do it often enough to make it worth spending thousands of dollars. But there are people out there that do that. And I'll let you know if I meet one. But all of the customers that I deal with are regular, ordinary, approachable folks who bought a computer to actually do work or to provide some form of entertainment or a little of both. And all of these little upgrades, they cost money, and what you're getting in return for that is very, very little. So when you're shopping around for computers, I strongly advise you not to allow yourself to be brainwashed by the enthusiasts and the hobbyists who are just pursuing numbers. You need to focus rather on the people that actually use the computers for real world activity things, rather than simulating real world activity things that very few people on this planet actually use their computer for. That's my advice. I could be a typical businessman and tell you, you should spend more money and you should get a faster processor and you should get more RAM and you should get more storage and that storage should be faster. But I would find that unethical because it's not practical and it's not justifiable for the vast majority of public to go to teach them to be so focused on the results of tests. Use the computer. Stop playing games with tests and actually use it. And if you find the computer comes up short in how you use it, if you feel like this is taking too long, talk to us about it. Let us know what is the actual real problem you have. Forget that imaginative problem that's based on nothing more than simulation. We're going to simulate the way a computer is being used is the dumbest concept I've ever heard. The whole point of having a computer isn't to simulate use, it's to actually use it. And if it is not meeting your expectations, come on in here and let us know, because we might be able to guide you to an optimization. It could be just a couple of clicks of the mouse or to an alternate piece of software. Sometimes it's the software that's causing the problem. And there's times where the developing of the software is done so poorly that in order to compensate for the poorly developed software, you need more resources, or you could simply go to one of their competitors of that software and effectively have this same output of whatever you're using the software for from a different manufacturer who codes more efficiently and just has better qualified programmers or higher quality control or higher demands on the quality of their product, rather than just writing the product in a sloppy way that bogs down a computer and then blame the computer for their sloppy code. So that's why I say this assumption that people make over and over and over again is often so misconstrued. As a technician, I shake my head and wonder why do people do these things? It doesn't make any sense to me. It seems like a great way to waste a lot of money and to waste a lot of time that is completely unnecessary. But again, I'm sharing with you a perspective from a working computer technician, not a hobbyist or an enthusiast who's just out chasing benchmark numbers, and all I do is use my computer to simulate how somebody might use a computer. If 90% of my computer usage is testing it to see how it would perform if somebody were actually using it, I don't see the point in having it. I think, gosh, I would know somebody. I know a lot of people that would be so glad to have your computer. They wouldn't have time to run benchmarks on it. They'd be using it to get things done, and they would be grateful to have it. So enough of that, off my soapbox. Let's take a look here at my desktop, because I know I saved, pretty sure I saved some results here. Right here. What is this? Oh, let's open this in Photos. Okay, so you can see this ran for an hour and 44 minutes and 46 seconds when I took the screenshot. And this is Prime 95 running for this entire length of time. If we go up and we look at the core temperature of the CPU, we see it reached a max of 83°C. That's incredible. And as I mentioned, it stayed into the 70s for the first hour. It took that long for the temps to reach that high. And we're still 17 degrees away from a thermal junction where the CPU starts to shut down cores to protect itself. At that point, the fan never got really loud at all. And the machine never crashed. Everything worked 100% perfectly. So this tells me that when the customer gets a machine, no matter what they're using it for, this machine right here, there is nothing that they can run on this that will cause it to overheat. Unless that customer goes in and starts cranking up voltages or cranking up settings in the BIOS, then all bets are off. This is the perfect balance of power, power consumption, and heat and cooling noise that comes from the factory. The factory does all this work for you, so that all you have to do is plug it in and enjoy it, and it will provide you, statistically speaking, years and years and years of trouble-free service with no blue screens and no problems, statistically speaking. Puts the odds in your greatest favor, leaving those settings alone. Now, if you wish to gamble a bit more, have at it. Get into the BIOS, start cranking things up. Tolerate the louder fan noise and tolerate potential blue screens that might occur or might not. That's up to you to gamble with. And we talk about the solid state storage at this price point with 512 gigs of storage. You are not going to be getting the latest and greatest, fastest, highest performance solid state drive, because again, it doesn't fit the rest of the system to do that. So we take a look at what kind of performance numbers we get. I'm just going to run the sequential read and the sequential write on the built-in C drive here. Don't expect to get blown away by rocket ship numbers you see on enthusiast channels. This appears to be a SATA SSD. It is not NVMe. And I can tell that looking at those numbers. I can also tell you, as a real computer technician, that when I swap out my client's SATA M.2s with NVMe M.2s that are 4 to 5 times faster, the clients universally and without a single exception have told me their computer does not feel any faster to them. They say it feels exactly the same, because the results of going from 560 megabytes per second to 7,000 megabytes per second, in reality, because you're just loading a file here, you're loading a file there, you're looking at a difference of milliseconds, which is very difficult for a human being to define. That felt about 6 milliseconds faster, said no human being ever. So once you hit about 500, it's very, very difficult, because again, it doesn't make any significant difference, except there may be certain applications that have extraordinarily large loading times, like when a game loads another level. And by having that faster drive, that level could load in half as much time of whatever it's taking, but you will still wait. You'll just wait less. And you will pay handsomely for the benefit of those extra seconds you're getting. If that's worth it to you, then have at it. But I think for most people, they would agree that spending that kind of money to get such little in return doesn't make any sense, simply because the benchmark shows it's 6 times faster. Once again, applications, depending on how they're written, may not fully take advantage of the performance of the drive. They might also be relying on the performance of the RAM, the quantity of the RAM, the speed of the processor, the age of the drivers, the versions of the drivers that are installed for various hardware, all have an impact on performance. So it's not as though there's just one magic part you change that makes everything all better. So just keep that in mind when we talk about reality versus our imagination in simulations. Simulations to me are mostly a waste of time. I care about the real world. I don't care about the imaginary world. I don't make money in the imaginary world. And there isn't much to fix in the imaginary world. People don't call me for imaginary problems. And if they did, I wouldn't want them to pay me in imaginary cash. So I'm just sharing with you this perspective because it goes against the perspective that is almost universal here on YouTube, that more is always better. But you reach a point of diminishing returns depending on how you use the machine. And for most people, once you exceed 16 gigs of RAM, anything you put in above that will return to you very little for most people. Whether your RAM is at 3200 megahertz or at a higher speed, once again, it's an almost immeasurable difference to most people, save for some gamers. But gaming is an expensive luxury. So it's not uncommon for gamers to drop $2,500 to $5,000 on a machine, and of course be extraordinarily demanding on their expectations of that machine's performance. When you're dropping 10% of that, less than 10% of that, on an entire computer, then that means 90% of those expectations, well, all of those expectations should be lowered by 90% accordingly if you're a reasonable person. So, I just don't like people turning their nose up at these computers when the vast majority of the population that owns computers would benefit from having this in both financial, the cost of operating it, the noise that it generates or lack thereof, and the amount of features it has. Therefore, for most people, not requiring any upgrade ever in the entire ownership of this product. That's the reality. The people that upgrade from this after a couple of years will probably be a very small percentage of people overall who bought these. The vast majority of people who buy machines like this will keep these machines until they can't use them anymore. So let me take a look back in the chat again and see if you missed any questions. If you do have questions for me, yeah, please do ask. I'll do my best to provide an answer for you. And Linda says hello. Welcome in, Alan. Alan contributes in Super Chat, $7.77. He says, hey, Kerry, I got here a bit late. Here's my late fee of $7.77. Nick Poverman says, I think people are looking for problems because they have nothing better to do. I think it's worse than that, Nick. They're not looking for problems. They're looking for a reason to be upset. It's like a social justice warrior mentality that's sort of infected a large portion of the population here in America. And they want to right a wrong, so they're looking for something wrong so they can be outraged. As Chris Rock called it, selective outrage. The psychology behind it is worrisome because it's not taking into account any actual real problem. It's taking into account theoretical problems under simulated situations. And I don't fix, no computer technician works on simulated problems that have to be resolved. For the most part, and there may be some exception, but for the most part, when somebody calls for computer repair, it's because they have a real problem, and it's not because what the benchmark said. If somebody were to call me and their problem was, my benchmark says this, but I saw a YouTube video and their benchmark was higher on the same machine, so I want you to come out and fix it, and I'm going to pay you money for that. That's never happened. What has happened is people have called and said, how can I make it match what I see online? Well, who cares? What's the problem? You're being manipulated by numbers that you're assuming are accurate. Why? What makes you think those numbers are true? And furthermore, what makes you think you will see any difference one way or the other when you actually use the machine? So if you want to pay me to do that, I'm happy to charge you for that service and come out and spend the time. But they never, ever want to pay me for that. Never. Okay, if you don't want to pay me for it, why are you wasting my time? I have actual work to do. I have computers that are actually broken, that have real problems, not imaginary ones, not ones that only exist in your mind. So if you want to pay me for it, fine. Nobody has ever paid me for that. So it's just it's very confusing. I don't know what they're thinking when they're reaching out to me. What am I going to do? I'm going to tell them to push a button on the keyboard. It's going to make all the problem go away. A problem that's not even a problem. It's an illusionary problem that has them emotionally distressed. Why would you do that to yourself? Use the computer. Just use it. If the computer's doing something that's not meeting your expectation, come on into the chat. Let us know what the problem is. We can help you solve that. Chasing benchmarking numbers is a waste of time. You want to waste your time? Don't let me get in your way. Please don't waste mine. That's all I'm saying. Let's see. Carrie, what is your take on the ARC GPUs from Intel? I haven't had one to test. They're still new. And as with any brand new product, you really want it out for a year to let them work the bugs out. They're getting better and better, and Intel's very seriously and aggressively pursuing improvement on that platform. If you're somebody who's a video content creator, these ARC GPUs are kicking NVIDIA and AMD's butts in the sense that they're supporting AV1 encryption, which is extraordinarily efficient. Once again, we talk about RAM making things faster, and we talk about solid-state drives making things faster. Nothing can make your video encoding faster than using a more efficient encoder like AV1. And Intel's got some very inexpensive entry-level gaming processors, GPUs, where AV1's just built in. In fact, I think AV1 is even built in to the Intel graphics on the N95 chip. It's right there. So in theory, I can encode videos on that chip faster than on this big monster over here at $4,400. That's how much of a difference AV1 makes in performance of encoding video. However, it depends on the length of the video, the number of edits in the video. So there's more to it than that. But AV1 is an extraordinarily efficient encoding, far better than what we've been using, what I've been using. And why NVIDIA and AMD haven't offered that on their, generally speaking, on their cards. You have to go pretty high up to get that. Where Intel's introducing it on low-end cards. That's a game changer if you're a content creator. So there's pros and cons across the board. It depends how you want to use it, how much money you've got to spend, and what your expectations are when you install it. So for some of you, you'll say it's terrible, and for others, you'll say it's an amazing value. And you would never buy those overpriced AMD and NVIDIA GPUs ever again. I haven't had one, but I'm basing this information on information that I read from both PCWorld.com and MaximumPC.com. And Gordon Maung over at PC World has done some great videos and a few articles on this topic that, Gordon's my guy. He and I see very much alike about practicality, about some of the nonsense that people are enraged about or getting pitchforks because they don't understand the technology, and as a result of somebody informing them incorrectly of their misunderstanding of the technology, they interpret it as being a problem, when in fact it's the exact opposite. It's a benefit. So even Gordon has said, you know, people just don't get it. And some commenter said, well, that's a heck of a way of calling your viewers stupid. Well, if viewers are behaving in a way that defeats logic and fails to see where the benefits are and only focuses on an imaginary negative that isn't really a negative, calling them stupid isn't what he's done, but that's what they're reading between the lines. And I would say that that's not out of line. He's trying his best in frustration to get people to release the toxicity of the false and imaginative information they have, to educate them. You know, one of the greatest ways to get around fear is to educate yourself. Education does so much to alleviate fear. Fear is mostly about things unknown or about things that aren't fully understood properly. And if you're truly passionate about it, then do yourself the best thing you can do for yourself, which is educate yourself more, and educate yourself from trusted sources, not from enthusiasts and hobbyists, but from trained journalists and from the websites that offer videos and offer articles written on a practical level, not strictly limited to a myopic point of view that if something is different, it's automatically bad because we don't get it. We think we get it, and that's why we don't like it. No, the problem is you don't get it. If you take the time to actually learn the benefits of it, you realize, oh my gosh, this is actually a really good thing. So talking about like AMD's latest 3D chip CPU, some people are outraged about the parked cores, and they don't realize what an ingenious idea the parked cores are and how it's helping them. But they are absolutely incensed, a portion of, because the information they're being fed from the content creators is overwhelmingly false. And the viewers are accepting that as 100% truth without really digging in to fully understanding why that's happening that way. And if you listen to Gordon Ma-Ung over at PC World, it is hilarious to see his frustration at trying to correct people. He's at his wit's end, and I've been there. So for that reason, I read a lot of Gordon Ma-Ung's content, and I subscribe to the PC World videos here on YouTube. And if I see Gordon has made a video, I'm watching it, because Gordon speaks in very practical manners and can be quite sarcastic, which is right up my alley. The problem we get into, and the reason why this matters so much to me, is I entered into this business as an enthusiast. And I said, look at all these dummies in corporate America doing all this stuff the hard way. Well, after a couple of years in the industry, I started to see events take place that could have been avoided entirely if there were different policies and practices in place. And that's when I realized, oh, that's why the practicality is so important. These people have to answer to their budget. They have to defend to great detail any computer upgrade for a department of a company, which includes the budget of buying the equipment and the IT budget to replace existing equipment, securely erase it before it can be e-cycled. It all has to be done following certain processes. And all of these processes would benefit every enthusiast. But enthusiasts in general are more risk takers. They're more about gambling, and they're more about unlimited budgets they don't have to answer to anybody on. So when the enthusiasts are making the bulk of the content, it's very easy for any regular user to watch this and see it over and over and over again from one enthusiast video to the next, that it never even occurs to them that there's a whole different perspective. So what happens is you start thinking every computer needs RGB and a liquid cooler and should be overclocked, and you should always have this high-speed RAM, and you should always have the fastest solid-state drives, and you love it. So what do? You want to get a job in the field. So like me, you get a job in the field because of how passionate you are and how much fun it is, only to realize, oh, this corporation's doing everything backwards. That's typically the reaction. And the corporation's like, oh boy, we're going to have to spend some time training this one. He doesn't get it. Usually it works out. Usually, eventually it'll start to make sense over the liabilities, the responsibilities, and the accountabilities that go up the chain to the bosses and to the shareholders as a result of something you did or proposed. You don't have any of that bureaucracy when you're just buying for yourself. And the scale, what we're talking about, we're buying one video card for $1,800. You think it's a lot of money, but worth it. But if you need to buy 1,000 video cards at $1,800 each, plus you've got to pay the IT team to go in and do these upgrades and do all the configurations, you better be able to justify that expense to the company and how that's going to earn them more money and pay for itself in hopefully a reasonable period of time, or you may find yourself out of a job because you're costing the company too much money and interfering with the productivity of the employees because you're too focused on looking at what the temps are and you're taking employees' computers down to fix a problem that's not a problem, and you're taking too long to fix problems, and you're not fixing enough computers per day compared to all of your coworkers. Typically, you get a warning. You need to step these things up and stop doing any unnecessary work, and do not run any software or testing or benchmarks that are not part of the company's approved process. And anything that falls within these parameters is acceptable, and you don't improve it beyond that, or we will replace you with somebody who follows the rules. And you might think, well, boy, these guys are so dumb, and they're not dumb. They have to keep their expenses under control. They don't have a bottomless budget. They have to keep the employees that are getting paid being productive. So if you're paying your IT employee and you're paying your other employee in the Department of Accounting who's got a computer problem now, you've got two employees being paid with no actual productivity being done as far as work the company needs done that the accounting employee can't do while you've got their system down. And if that accountant's system is down for hours and hours and hours, they don't get those hours back. It just means that that employee now is behind their schedule because of you. And if it took you that long, that means you weren't available to help the next employee who's been waiting for you. So you have to be able to get in and get out very, very quickly, and don't mess about with things that don't need to be messed with in order to have massive uptime, massive productivity, so that the company can maintain profitability, which keeps the shareholders happy. It enables the company to grow and get bigger and to hire more people, including more computer techs. So instead of getting laid off, the company's growing and adding more people. That's what we want to see. Home users don't deal with any of this. You have how much money you have in the bank, and how you want to spend it is how you want to spend it. And regardless of how much time you have to spend, it's just how you spend your time. Nobody cares. Outside of your four walls, it has no impact on the world around you whatsoever. And that's what the enthusiast channels don't take into consideration in most cases. And if they're not making their viewers aware of that possibility, it's not like the viewer is going to come up with that on their own. They don't think about it. So if that viewer then goes into a job for IT because they enjoy doing the stuff they see on enthusiast channels, They're going to soon find out you don't do any of that in corporate America. You're not putting in liquid coolers. You're not putting in RGB. You're not overclocking or even messing with a BIOS outside of the corporate dictated BIOS settings. You will not deviate from that. Should you deviate from that, you'll likely be warned to stop. And if you do it again, you'll likely be without a job. And they will replace you with somebody who will follow the rules, because it's time and money, time and money, time and money. It's not putting the fastest thing in. That does not equate necessarily to better productivity. It doesn't mean it was a good financial investment for the company. And the company won't be just doing it to one computer. The company could be doing it to 5,000 or 10,000 computers at a time. It's very, very costly. And what I'm suggesting is, if home users adopt these corporate ways, it would benefit them 100% without any exception. But if corporations adopted the ways of the hobbyists, most companies would go out of business probably in a very short time. They would just run out of money, but they'd have some really amazing computers to show off and brag about. But that doesn't get people paid. And that's the reality of it. It's work, and it's fun work. I enjoy it. I don't see it as a down thing that, oh, I can't overclock and install liquid coolers. That's, to me, I'm with the corporation. I'm like, that's all nonsense. Why would we do that? What has that got to do with being able to sell people groceries at the grocery store? Right? Cashier, those registers are all computers. Would it matter to you if the cashier was using a register that had a liquid-cooled overclocked CPU in it? Are they going to get your groceries scanned and bagged any faster? Do you understand how impractical that is? And what a waste of money that is, both in the initial cost of that upgrade, plus paying the labor of the IT department to implement that upgrade, to deploy it, and to thoroughly test it. For what? For what reason? And if you, the customer, go into the grocery store and their systems are down, you've got a cart full of groceries that you have gathered, and they say, I'm sorry, our systems are down, we can't ring anybody up right now. You have a choice. As a customer, do you stand there with your cart as your frozen food is melting until their systems somehow come back up whenever that happens? Or do you say, oh no, I got other things to do today. Abandon your cart, get in your car, and go to the grocery store down the street and buy your groceries there instead? That is devastating to a company, because not only did they lose your sale, you have potentially food that they're going to have to throw out because it wasn't properly put back in a refrigerated or frozen food section because the cart was abandoned. They have to pay an employee to put all that food back. And while that employee's doing that, they can't be doing the thing they were actually hired to do, because customers have left these carts behind and somebody needs to deal with it. And now the company's bleeding money on top of bleeding money. It is a massive financial loss that can be extraordinarily difficult to recover from. Something home users never deal with, so these thoughts never occur to them. It's, how fast is my solid state drive? How much faster can I get my CPU? And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it, but when you understand the reasons why, those reasons from the hobbyists seem awfully petty and almost a little snobbish for no good reason, whereas the corporations have the livelihood of their employees and of their business, as well as the convenience of servicing their customers, all at risk of being lost. So that's why I'm here to explain these differences. Now, on the AceMagician, one of the things that I've not been liking on these AceMagicians is it appears to open one of these up, you've got to remove the rubber feet. This is very disappointing to me because you should be able to open that to replace the RAM or upgrade the Wi-Fi or upgrade the storage. But to have to remove the rubber feet, they just won't stick right ever again. B-Link, Minis for them, they either have a hole drilled through the rubber foot, which I suppose you could get a drill and drill a hole through to line up with the screw. I would like to see AceMagician change this. Even if they gave you an extra set of rubber feet that only lets you open it once. Anytime I've used alternative glues to seat the feet, it just never seems to stick very long, and we lose the feet, and before you know it, you've got a computer that's scratching up the surface, or it's wobbly because the feet have come off. So, you know, they could have moved the rubber feet a ½ inch, you know, a centimeter to the left or the right of the screw on each corner, leaving the screw exposed so that one could simply open and close the unit any number of times, having no effect on breaking the seal of the glue that holds the rubber feet on. So that really, really saddens me. That really frustrates me. I would be very hesitant to open any computer that requires the rubber feet removed on. And if I was going to do it, I'd only do it once. Because if I have to take the feet off again, the likelihood of them ever sticking with any veracity, in my experience, they're just going to fall right off. And you end up using stronger and stronger glue to the point that at some point when you go to take the rubber feet off, they're so well glued, they won't come off and you have to tear them. Then what are you going to do? So all of this can be avoided by simply moving the rubber feet away from the screws or drilling a hole or molding the rubber feet with a hole in the center that aligns with the screw so that the machine can be easily opened as many times as you want with no fear of any long-term damage, such as not being able to get the feet back on or having to source new feet every single time you do it. That's just unnecessary, and it's a very easy thing to fix. But at this price point, I can't really complain. I just think, how much would it have cost them? How much would it have altered the price point if they would have given that a little thought? So when it comes to complaints, that's a pretty minor little complaint, especially if you never have to open it anyway. It is only an N95 processor, so just, you know, it's 16 gigs of RAM and 512 gigs of storage. That should be all this machine ever needs. You can plug in USB storage if you want to expand your storage. No problem. You can use storage over your network. You can have a network attached storage device. You can often plug a storage device into your router and share it over your network that way. And your speed's limited to your network speed. So who cares? Your current drive is still going to be 4 times faster than the data transfer speed of your network. So that's why I find it so preposterous that people don't think it's fast enough. It doesn't benefit you to have it any faster. I find it very confusing as a technician, this obsession with performance, when there's nothing really that benefits from that performance except copying from one fast M.2 to another within the same computer. Anytime you've got to move the data outside of the computer, well, things get really expensive, and to expect that on a $200 computer is preposterous. It's not reasonable. Anyway, am I still on my soapbox? I think I might be. Let me just take a quick look in the chat room here and see if there's any questions. And I'll do my best to answer them, practical or not. Bikeman said, our power company in Michigan changed to time of day rates, 3 p.m. to 7 p.m. supposedly costing more. Is it fine to leave my computer desktop on 24/7 still and do heavy type games after that time? So the computer generally is not a big power consumption device unless you've got a high-end graphics card in it and you're using it. The thing that consumes the most amount of power is your monitor. So as long as you have your computer going to sleep and you've got in your power settings, your minimum CPU state should be at 5%. AMD likes to have the minimum processor state at 100%. So AMD chips generally cost more to run because of that. But you can alter that. But by default, they set minimum and maximum processor state at 100%. I think that's dumb. If the CPU is idling like it's been doing while I'm talking, there's no reason for that CPU to be running at 2.4 gigahertz. It should be running at a fraction of that as it's idle. Therefore, it's sipping power. When you're playing games and you're wondering how much power you're using, you can use a device called a kilowatt meter, and you plug your computer into the kilowatt meter and you plug the kilowatt meter into the wall, and it will show you how many watts you're drawing at each given moment. Then you can do the math to average that out to how much per kilowatt hour it's costing you to determine if it's really going to make any difference in your bill, significant to notice $1 or $2, or is it going to be more like $20 or $30 difference? Computer like this, you could leave this computer on 24/7 as it's sitting right now. As long as we let the monitor go to sleep, this is pennies a day to leave it on. Literally pennies, at least here in the USA. When you get into those big $2,500 computers, when you get into those expensive GPUs, it's the GPUs that want all the power. If you have a super high-end CPU, like a 13900KS that runs at 6 gigahertz, power consumption goes up. And if you're using it a lot and you're pressing it hard a lot, you probably will see a difference in your electric bill. All of these things to make us go faster not only cost more money, but they cost more money to run. It's pretty much this way in every aspect of life. If you buy a regular baseline Dodge Challenger automobile, you can pick them up fairly cheap. One of the cheapest cars that's rear-wheel drive that you can buy today. But it can also be one of the most expensive cars you buy today. So if you're buying a modest V6 Dodge Challenger, you probably pick that up for somewhere in the $20,000 range. Mid-20s, pretty cheap by today's standards. Rear view camera, Bluetooth, have all that. You'll get 25 miles per gallon using regular gasoline, normal unleaded fuel. Or you can buy a $90,000 Dodge Hellcat Challenger, and that will require premium fuel, which is significantly more per gallon. It will get you 13 miles to the gallon, and the insurance on it will cost you more. So if you want to pursue performance, open your wallet. In racing, there's an expression that's been around as long back as when I first got introduced to car racing. That is, how fast can the cars go? And the answer is, how much money do you want to spend? That's it. There's really no limit to how fast they can make a car, except for the budget. So the more you're going to get performance, the more expensive that gets in many facets. Power consumption. Say you have an electric car and you want this electric car to be in a race and you want it to be the fastest electric car. What kind of range do you think you're going to get out of those batteries? Not enough to make it practical for everyday use, not for running daily errands. Your miles between charge is going to be probably 30% of what a regular normal electric car will get you in range. But you're also going to pay more for that car. You're going to pay more for the specialty of it. You're going to pay more to insure that car. Some places won't insure cars that are in races. And you're going to pay more to maintain that car, and that car is by very nature going to need more maintenance. You buy something like this, for example, we are not a leader in performance, but we are getting a ton of performance, especially compared to high-end CPUs from 10 years ago. This thing seems like it's amazing. So it depends on what we want to compare it with. If you want to compare this with other computers brand new that you can buy for $200, this is a steal. Just do the research and see what you can get for $200. Do the research and see what it would cost you to build something equivalent to this yourself. It's probably going to be closer to $400. So having it pre-built saves a lot of money. It's already balanced performance, power consumption to a reasonable, what's the word I want? I can never think of this word. Compromise. This computer is the logical compromise that the vast majority of average everyday computer owners and even many business owners would agree to give up all of these unnecessary things to save a ton of money to get the necessary things is a very reasonable compromise. But to not compromise, to say, I want that price, but I want all of this high-end stuff, that's not reasonable. All right, let me take a look again if we have any other comments here in the chat. I think, as you can see on the desktop, there's the applications that I ran on the machine. You know what? While I've got it open, let's just take a look at the specifications to see that they match the box properly. So if I just come over here and right-click on my computer, which it's not letting me do for some reason. Let's go over here and go to System. We see that we have the Intel 12th generation N95. It's at 1.7 right now, but it will turbo up, I believe, to 2.4 as it's needed. It's got Windows 11 Pro that is activated. I have updated it. And we see we've got the 16 gigs of storage, 15.7 gigs is available. The 0.3 that's being used is being used by the onboard video card. If we take a look at the storage, I'll go over here to Crystal Disk Info. That's Crystal Disk Mark, Crystal Disk Info. And what we can do with this is see the make and model of the drive. Don't expect some high-end name brand drive in this to reach this price point. You've got to source parts from cheaper manufacturers, less expensive manufacturers who aren't as well known, so they can't raise their price like big brands like Sony will charge more, Samsung can charge more because of their name. If you don't have that name, you can't add that added profit. You've got to be more aggressive in your pricing. So we've got a drive here called a Kim2Go, which is a 512 gig serial ATA, meaning it is SATA. It is not NVMe. Now, as you recall, last week, when I was looking at one of these machines, I said, well, what a shame. It's only got 8 gigs of RAM and 256 gig SSD. Because if it had 16 gigs of RAM and 500 gig SSD at around the $200 price point, that would be amazing. And no sooner than I said it, than AceMagician said, we have exactly what you want. So you can imagine when I hear people say that's not enough, it blows my mind as to how unreasonable people can be. The fact that this has 2 LAN jacks on the back blows my mind. I'm sure if they got rid of that extra LAN jack most people will never use, they could have brought the price down a little bit more. I wouldn't be surprised if AceMagician contacted me and said, we have one of those too. Because as I mentioned when I first started this, there is a massive variety of mini PCs that have suddenly become available. You know, it used to just be the Intel NUC and maybe Gigabyte bricks. There was a very small selection. Now, the selection's growing weekly with new models being introduced almost every week from manufacturers. And it's blowing my mind to see how much variety, both in the footprint. I mean, I'm seeing them as small as like a little cube. I'm seeing them 1/4 the size, equipped with like a Celeron 5105 processor, and they've got USB and HDMI ports across all 4 sides because they can't fit them all on one side. So you don't have the traditional front and back because it's just like a little Rubik's Cube. There's the dated reference. It's about the size of a Rubik's Cube, and it's got the SSD and the RAM and the Windows 11, all that, but it is a previous generation CPU. And so why I'm so excited about this is a 12th gen. This is a newly released processor from Intel, the N95. And these new processors are just simply faster than what they're replacing. They use less power, generally speaking. And because they're so new, their lifespan is realistically a bit longer. So if this chip is replacing a chip that's been out for the last year, then this computer has an added year of life than that computer from last year, at a minimum. There's always exceptions. It's hard to predict the future. But if things continue to evolve the way that they've been evolving, it's very reasonable to expect 8 years out of a $200 machine that's built with these specifications for most ordinary everyday use, including office use. And that's why I'm making videos about these, because I'm blown away at what a bargain it is. And then I get blown away by how some people in the audience don't think it's enough. There's a real easy way to make it enough. Spend more money. Sherry McFarland wants to know, what new CPU would at least be equal to a first gen i7? Whoa. That's a pretty low bar. If we look at a first gen i7, we just take a quick look here online. So let's say a Core i7 950. That ran between 2.5 and 2.99 gigahertz. This is at 2.4 when it turbos. So let's do this. Let's type in i7 950 versus N95. Let's just do that. And when you know it, there is a website, it looks like it's in another language, that has done this comparison. So I want to show you this. I'm going to share the screen with you. Let me see if I can put it in English. And let me go over to the screen share. And if this doesn't make your jaw drop, I don't know what would. Okay. So the Core i7-950, they're showing at $319. The N95 processor sells for far, far less than that. Game support at 77%. Game support at 81%. We can scroll down and we can look at these numbers. And this just shows you how fast our technology is moving forward. That an entry-level CPU against a flagship CPU from 2008, look at how much things have improved and how the prices have come so far down. Not to mention the improvements on embedded video. They've leaps and gains better with onboard graphics than they were 10 years ago. I think it's incredible that a $200 machine, that's the whole computer, that sells for 2/3 the price of just a CPU that would require a motherboard, RAM, storage, case, power supply, operating system. You're going to be hitting $800, $900 to get that system complete. This system has all of that at $206 with the coupon code. Can you understand why I'm enthusiastic about what a bargain these are? Because I was working on those first generation Core i7s when that's all there was. And then second gen, third gen, fourth gen, fifth gen. I've been on this ride for 30 years. And this is incredible progress. And especially when we're talking about inflation and things getting more expensive, this is the exact opposite. This stuff is getting far more affordable, and including more RAM, which is also faster RAM, and more storage. It's also faster storage. Because back then, we were probably still using regular SATA 150 or SATA 300, which is painfully slow compared to with that processor. So granted, this one's running the essential like SATA 600, and you know we can't get SATA any faster than that. That's the upper limit. So yeah, pretty incredible if you ask me. Incredible progress we've made as a innovation in our human ingenuity and the engineers that develop this stuff and how they're able to do it faster, cheaper, and effectively more powerful and more reliable. Because of the manufacturing processes being used today, the reliability of products coming out of factories where everything is automated, it's all done by machine. You're no longer dealing with an employee with a bad attitude, or an employee that doesn't feel well, or an employee that wants to sabotage the company. These machines work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week in most cases, and do everything precisely the same, much faster than a human can do it, with more accuracy than a human can do it. And it results in a product that's built much, much better quality control wise, and is likely going to last longer, and you're going to have fewer issues out of the box. It's pretty unusual for me to receive a dead on arrival product. And if it does happen, it's likely because something happened in shipping where the product was handled or the package was handled in a very disrespectful way. It's hard to blame the manufacturers for that. There's only so much control they have. The good news is most delivery drivers handle their packages with respect. And when somebody happens to catch a delivery driver being disrespectful with a package, it goes on Twitter, it goes on social media, and it's all you ever see. And then you think, well, that's what every delivery driver does. That's what that company does, you know. Fact of the matter is, one employee does not represent a nationwide shipping corporation, and is by no means a proper measure of deciding whether or not they're a good shipper or not. Once again, in my line of work, I can't go based on my feelings. I have to go based on where the numbers make sense. Every shipper can have a bad employee, or an employee's having a bad day. And if that employee continues that behavior, that employee won't be an employee much longer. So when these events do happen, it's usually a short time before the problem is isolated and removed. And then suddenly that's not a bad shipper anymore from your perspective once you got rid of the delivery driver that was delivering to you no longer working there. That is the exception. I ship a lot of equipment. I ship it via FedEx because I have found, for the most part, FedEx is the best shipper in getting my products to where I need them to go on time and without damage. Sometimes some people live in areas where the FedEx service in their area is not very good because the FedEx stores are all franchises. It's not like it's all owned by one big company. As a result, every now and again, somebody, often people who live out in the sticks, doesn't get the kind of service I'm accustomed from seeing from FedEx. But FedEx does a very good job, in my opinion, of really trying hard to get that package delivered. That's why when I ship, I need the recipient's phone number, because if there's any problems in that delivery, FedEx is going to call. You think the United States Post Office is going to call you? They don't do that. Does UPS call you? UPS doesn't do that. FedEx is the only one I know that will go that far over and above to try and get you your package before the time limit where they have to send it back, because we got to keep moving forward. And it does require your participation sometimes, if that's the, if you live in an apartment complex that's got a gate and they don't have a code to get in, they have no way to leave a notice on your door, all they can do is call you. I don't give FedEx people's email addresses. I only give them the name, street address, city, state, zip code, and their phone number. And the reason I need that phone number is so that they can get a hold of you if they're unable to bring the package to your door because they don't have access to the property or they can't find it. So what they'll do is they'll say, we'll hold it here at the local FedEx store, which is really convenient. They're not going to put it at some store across town. It'll be likely the closest store to your address, and you need to come and pick it up. I'm not aware of UPS ever doing that. I'm sure UPS will say you got to come to the post office to pick up your mail, but they leave a note. They don't call. So anyway, that's how I'm able to sustain my business, where everything isn't always perfect all the time. But when it isn't perfect, that's the exception. And the exceptions, well, they do happen, they're rare. So there isn't perfect out there. Too many people are looking for absolutes. There are no absolutes anywhere in life except death and taxes, as they say. All right, let me take another quick look here in the chat. We've been, how long have I been live here now? About an hour and 45. I'd like to keep these wrapped up about 2 hours. As you can see, I've just booted it into the desktop, this AceMagician. You can see how fast it boots. You see the storage, you see that it's SATA, you see the performance of the storage, you see this incredible price, you see the Windows 11 Pro that's activated and included in that price. What more would you like to know? What more what hesitations do you have about buying it? What is it that would prevent you from buying one of these at $206? Do you think it's still too expensive? And if so, compared to what? Can you show me an alternative to this that's equivalent or better for the same or less money? Because if you can't, I don't know how you can say it's too expensive. Rick Lake said he picked up his mini computer at FedEx. Yeah, so if they had a problem delivering to Rick Lake's, like, I don't know, does Rick Lakes live in the woods? Does he live in a gated community where perhaps they don't have access to I don't know where he lives. But I imagine FedEx probably called him if they had trouble delivering it to say, we have your package. They go above and beyond to try and get people their packages. And I can't say enough good about that. So yeah, I do pay. Actually, FedEx is one of the cheapest compared to UPS and USPS. When I was researching for where I was going to ship, who my shipper was going to be, including DHL, FedEx was the cheapest. Now, I haven't checked that in a few years. Maybe that's changed, but because the service is so good and the packages arrive without damage, I'll stick with what I know. And then when incidents occur, it's just rare. It happens, but it's very unusual. If it were to become common, I would not use them as a shipper anymore. Mike Schnetzer says, I'm a retired FedEx employee after 35 years. It's a great company, and I was always proud to say that I worked for FedEx. So you should. I am not tied to FedEx other than my own voluntary reasoning for why I returned to them. And the reason I returned to them is they continue to be the great value that generally delivers on time. Very rare do they not deliver on time. And most packages are delivered normally. But every once in a while, somebody will, be the recipient of something I'm sending. And I think in all the years I've been doing this, there have been 3 occasions where individuals had some issues with FedEx. But what's funny is, as much as those individuals rant and rave about how terrible FedEx is, when I call FedEx and ask about it, and I hear FedEx's side of the story, I think, wow, what an unreasonable customer they had to deal with. And I typically take FedEx's side once I hear all the attempts FedEx made that the person ignored. And when the person says they didn't make any attempts, I've been here all day, nobody knocked on my door, but FedEx has in fact proof that they did, at that point, I don't chastise the customer. I just simply tell the customer, look, there's no different rules for you than anybody else. They made the attempt. I have talked to them. They've explained to me how difficult you have been from their perspective, and that you need to go there and get your package. They're done coming to you now. You need to go. Go pick it up. They're giving you multiple days to do that. And if you choose not to, then they'll return the package to me. And then what else am I going to do? I don't get refunded the shipping cost. And something that I've moved out of my to-do list now just got put right back on my to-do list. Do you think I'm going to ship back to that person again from any shipper? Because at that point, I think I'm having a problem with the person, not the shipping company. But again, that's so rare. And other times it can just be an innocent misunderstanding. A FedEx driver might be trying to deliver it, especially in an apartment complex where there are multiple buildings, might be trying to deliver the package to the wrong building number. And so I had an incident where a customer saw the FedEx driver out there, knew their package was supposed to arrive that day, but saw the FedEx driver walking across to the other building, and he shouted to the FedEx driver, who noticed he was carrying a big box that looked like it was a computer, "Hey, is that for me?" And the FedEx driver, said, "Oh, are you this person?" He said, "Yeah, I'm over here. I don't live over there." And the FedEx driver said, "Oh, I was about ready to load this back in the truck because there was nobody there and it needs a signature." So luckily at that point, that person happened to catch the delivery as it was occurring. And clearly this has happened before, because they know to watch for that if you live in an apartment complex where those kind of mistakes are frequent. It's hard to blame the shipper on that, honestly, unless you order a lot of packages, at which case you get to know the shipper and they know you, so they know exactly where the package needs to go. But if you very rarely ever receive FedEx packages and they're not familiar with your, and it's particular of apartment complexes. And the bigger the apartment complex is, yeah, it can get a little tricky for these delivery drivers. So you can do a little bit to help them out too. Let's see what you guys have saying in the chat. Again, we've only got a few minutes left here. I'm going to wrap this up. But if you have any other questions or concerns about the AceMagician, this is the AD03. AceMagician has sent the machine to me for free. They are not paying me. They said, we'll send this to you for a review. I said, great, I'd love to review it. I will follow this review up. And then in the months ahead, it will likely be given away to a member of our community. So that gives you something to look forward to. Patrick Grusaw says, FedEx delivered my package to a wrong address once. I filed a lost package claim and 2 weeks later I had a check. When UPS delivered my package to a wrong address, it took 2 months to get reimbursed. Thankfully, I've never had to do that with FedEx. I've never, ever had to file a claim for a lost package or a damaged package. But remember, I'm not doing this for fun. I'm doing this to earn a living. And so if packages don't arrive on time, if packages arrive damaged, or if packages don't arrive at all, that looks bad on my business. Doesn't necessarily look back on the shipper. It looks bad on me for deciding to use that shipper. So the damages can have like a domino effect with regards to what the customer feels about dealing with Kerry Holzman. You know, I waited for this thing, it never showed up. I think the guy's a scammer, right? I mean, it would be very easy to come to that conclusion when there's things out of my control. But then they could say, well, you're the one who made the decision to use that shipper, so I'm still holding you accountable. Fair enough. And of course, it makes everybody miserable. I'm not happy about it. Customer's not happy about it. And I promise you, the shipper is not happy about it. So it's unpleasant for everybody involved. Nobody benefits. So we all have motivation from the manufacturer to the shipper to the recipient to get it done, to get that package delivered properly. Otherwise, any sort of redo, it pulls us back and it hinders our ability to move forward with delivering other packages to other people because we have this one lingering that we're having trouble getting rid of, and they have to put a time limit on it. There's only so much time they can spend trying to get that package delivered before they go, look, we're sending this back to the sender. We've done everything we can. At some point, they've got to cut their losses because they're delivering millions of packages each and every day worldwide. Just looking through comments here and seeing if there's any other questions I can answer for you guys. Sherry McFarland says, thank you for sharing this mini PC with us, Carrie. Next week, thank you, Sherry. Next week, I've got a Minis Forum computer to review. And then the week after that, I have another bargain AceMagician computer with yet another, not only another configuration, but a completely different look. About the same size, but like all rounded, a bit thinner. And I'm really looking forward to showing off that one. And the idea here is to show you just a taste of the variety. There's no way I could review all of them out there because they're coming out with new models faster than I can review them. So I'm taking a smattering of sort of some mid-range, mostly the lower end, because I know more people are more likely to buy a $200 computer than a $600 or a $700 computer. But I also know there are some people that do want that $600 or $700 mini PC. So I'm reviewing a couple of those, but a majority of the mini PCs, I'm trying to get them certainly under the $300 price point. And the more I can get them down, the better. I've seen, I think there's a Camrui AK1 Pro on Amazon for $163 today. But that's using a previous generation Celeron, not the latest 12th generation N95. So this one will outperform it, but this one does cost a little bit more. You get what you pay for. See what I'm going at here? Doesn't mean one machine's bad. It just means you're paying less and you're getting less. And if you don't need more, why should you spend more to get more that you don't need? It seems like you're wasting your money. So just as an example, I'm just trying to pick through what I think would be most interesting to the vast majority of viewers out there. And then, of course, throwing in a couple of excessive ones just to give it some perspective and to also not alienate that audience that does have that $1,000 they're willing to drop on a high-end mini PC that they can use for gaming on AAA titles. They exist. They just don't sell as many of them. There's our friend Mats Olof joining us from Sweden. He says, hello, camera lady and Carrie. I have nothing to say, but I see you. Well, I'd say you did have something to say. You said hello.
Hello.
There. Good to see you, my friend. Tim Teal says hello and happy Friday. Sherry McFarland says, I want one that's going to have enough oomph for Photoshop and Premiere Pro. So that's very easy to accomplish, providing you're willing to spend between $600 and $1,000. Now, this machine will do Photoshop and it will do Premiere Pro, but it's going to be very slow. But it absolutely will do it. Photoshop would be far more tolerable on this. Premiere Pro, you're going to need a lot of patience. When we talk about video editing, you can pretty much throw away any idea of budget. Because now, if what you're doing is requiring the kind of resources involved in video editing, you're reaching into more professional level equipment and not consumer level equipment, generally speaking. So take, for example, some of the offerings of mini PCs that have the upper echelon of Ryzen processors and Intel i9 processors. And then you've got to consider how much demand on the video card. So you could look at something like the NUC i7X from Minis Forums, which has an RTX 3070 laptop style graphics card built right into the motherboard. That's going to start right around $1,100, bare bones, where you have to add your own RAM and storage. So you can see you can get there, but your budget's going to have to, you could buy 8 of these for what you're wanting to do that kind of work. And even then that's a bargain, because when you think about what a machine that would have that kind of power, less than that power, would have cost you 3 or 4 years ago, let alone 10 years ago. Those machines were commonly $2,500 and above. So even at $1,500, that shows really the evolution that's taken place and how much more power has become less expensive. But very few people have those demands, and so they don't sell many machines like that, but they do make them. Look at the Minis Forum NUC i7X, or i7X NUC. It's pretty big too. It's about yay big. It's about this thin. Or consider a laptop. something that's a content creation laptop like the Dell XPS line will do all that quite well. And you'll be looking around $2,400 for a well-equipped Dell XPS that's at least a 15-inch monitor that can easily handle Photoshop and Adobe Premiere. And of course, that's going to include a keyboard, a mouse, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, a monitor, and speakers, a webcam, all built into that price. And if you're going to drop that kind of coin on a computer, and especially if it's a laptop, I recommend you buy the extended warranty, because once you're out of warranty, they become very expensive to fix. So if you can get the extended warranty, once you're dropping that kind of money, then at least you have peace of mind knowing you've got a guaranteed working computer for the total length of warranty that you've purchased, which is usually up to 3 years, sometimes 4 years. And then when you subtract out that cost to what your cost per year is to have that, it's costing you probably less than around $60 or $70 a month for 3 years. Trouble-free, guaranteed, very affordable. Sherry says, I saw that minis forum on your video. It's pretty cool. It is pretty cool, for sure. Very unique. I've never seen anything like it. And that's something I like about minis forums, is their designs are often not the same cookie cutter stuff we're finding that come out of China in general. These really appear to be custom made pieces where engineers are involved in designing something that is not an industry standard, and not done for the sake of being different, but for the sake of being better, more affordable, more attractive, more serviceable. Jim KJ3N says his streaming editing rig is now on Ryzen 7700X. He replaced it from an i5 10400. Render times cut almost in half. Sure. And you know, if you're making a 5-minute video, cutting your render time in half is only saving you 2.5 minutes. But if you're making a 2-hour video, or your render time is 2 hours, then cutting it in half is a significant time savings, increasing your productivity, making it absolutely worth the investment. Jamie McGregor has now been a member for 10 months as he continues to renew his membership here at the Tech Club. Thank you, Jamie. Don Allen with a $20 Super Chat contribution says, the Amazon won't ship the AceMagician mini PCs to California. Well, if that's the case, it's a result of California law. That's not AceMagician's choice. That is your government, your state government in California that's preventing it. So that's something to take up with your local council or senators. Well, I know people that live in California that can't get shower heads. They can't get certain light bulbs. California won't allow Amazon to send them into the state. So what they'll do is they'll say, hey, Carrie, can I have it mailed to you? And then have you mail it on to me. So you just have a friend that lives in another state. And granted, you're going to pay for the shipping, you know, to get it over to you. But shipping a mini computer is about $30, $40. So that's how you can get around because the government's only enforcing it from the manufacturers. They're not enforcing this law on the consumers. So I could bring a carload of these computers in. Nobody's going to stop me. And once they're in people's homes, nobody's going to do an inspection of your home like it's contraband. It's just sort of an overreaching energy thing they're really focused on in California. And California, as far as I know, is the only state in the United States that does this to their citizens. But that's what citizens do to get around it. Or sometimes the citizens take a little road trip. They go to Vegas. They go to Yuma. They have the computer delivered to like a P.O. box in Yuma. They drive out there, they pick it up. But for what that's going to cost you in gas, you might as well just have a friend in another state forward it on to you. If you really want it. It's not a showstopper. And you can always leave California and go to literally any of the other 49 states and never deal with this ever for the rest of your life. Or you can stay in California knowing what it means to be in California. Legrinia says, I think this is the mini forums Nook that Kerry reviewed, and they are running a great price on it. And he includes a link. Let's take a look. Yeah, that's the one there. You'll see it's let's see, I'll show this to everybody here. Let's share the screen. That's the minis forum. There's a Nook i5 and a Nook i7. Remember I said they're coming out with new ones all the time. This UM773SE isn't even out yet, so this is on a pre-sale. You just blink your eyes and there's another one coming out. Let's see, $1,099 for the i7 11800H and NVIDIA 3070. That's bare bone. That means you have to provide your own RAM and you have to provide your own storage and your own operating system. Do they even have the i5? The i5 shows it's about $200 less, $150 less. And it appears to be sold out anyway, from what I can tell. Yeah, completely sold out. So yes, if you want it with 32 gigs of RAM and a 1 terabyte SSD, your price jumps to $1299. And I would assume they put Windows 11 on that. It is a very unique design. It's absolutely one of my favorite designs I've seen on a mini PC. It is so different. And unique in a very cool way. But that's a far cry from the $200 machine I'm showing you today. You could buy 5 of these, 6 of these computers before you'd reach the price of $1,299 for that. So if your needs justify that sort of budget, then so be it. But I can guarantee you they don't sell anywhere near as many of these as they do of their $200 models. Photo editing, video editing, and gaming are some of the most difficult tasks you can ask your computer to do. And as a result, they require more expensive, higher performance parts, which are going to cost significantly more. Just like a car. Higher performance car costs disproportionately more than the regular performance version of the same car. It's not like it's a fair dollar per horsepower. You lose value when you get into this super high-end stuff. And that's where companies make their highest profits. So it's not a bad thing that people buy this high-end stuff. Companies love it. And it helps companies take potential losses on the cheaper stuff for the rest of us to benefit from. All right, I think that's going to wrap it up for me for today. Thanks you guys so much for hanging out with me and your participation in the chat. Johnny Weld said, I can't wait to see the 13900K build that's coming up. Yeah, that's the 13900KS Special Edition 6 gigahertz processor, sealed in a box. So yeah, that's $739, which after sales tax is about $800 here in Phoenix. For $800, I could buy 4 of these fully functioning computers. And instead, all I got is a CPU. So I still got to get the motherboard, the RAM, the cooler, the case, the power supply. And while this does have built-in video, I would obviously want to put a pretty high-end video card in to go with something that high-end. So that build, when it's all said and done, will likely be somewhere around the $3,000 price range, or about 15 of these AceMagician computers could be purchased for the same budget. Pretty interesting perspective, I think. My thanks, of course, to the folks at AceMagician for sending me the unit so that I can introduce you to it. Set your expectations properly so that if you decide to buy one, you know exactly what you're going to get. That way there's less chance you're going to feel like it doesn't meet your expectations, right? By buying it from Amazon, it's risk-free. You can return it within 30 days, no questions asked, get a full refund, and the return is free. You don't have to pay for the return shipping back. So I don't know what more I can do to reassure you that at the end of the day, whether or not you like this computer will ultimately be decided by you having one in front of you and using it to see if it meets your needs. So as long as it's risk-free and you have an interest, there is nothing anybody's going to tell you that can guarantee that you are going to like or dislike this machine. You and only you can make that decision by purchasing it, and you have no reason to not purchase it. If you're concerned it's not going to meet your needs, you just send it back. So again, all the links for this computer are in the video notes. The coupon code is only available until midnight tonight Pacific time. At 11:59 p.m. tonight, that coupon code stops working after that. And then it goes back to its regular price. So that's not to say it wouldn't go on sale again, but the coupon code does only have a 24-hour lifespan. It started early in the morning and it goes until the last minute of today. I wish AceMagician would have extended that to give people more time, because I realize some people won't see this video for a few days after I publish it. But like I said, AceMagician's not paying me. If that's what they want to do with their promotion, that's their choice. And I'd strongly encourage anybody considering it not to hesitate, because after 11:59 p.m. tonight, Pacific time, that discount goes away. Thank you guys for watching, and thanks to everybody who's contributed, including Jefferson Creel, our good friend John Jack Wilson, and Buster, Peter Laycock. Thanks to Gary Tatum, who contributed $10 via Super Chat and says, thanks for the great content as usual. Have a great weekend. Thanks, Gary. And Don Allen, thank you for your contribution, $20 Super Chat contribution. Kevin Dara, thank you for your continued Super Chat and your Amazon gift card contribution today. Rip City Raider became a new member to our Tech Club. Welcome into the Tech Club, Rip City. Be sure and join us on Monday at 1 o'clock for our members-only videos. So if you are a member of the channel, not a subscriber, but a member, only members can watch those Monday videos. Those air every Monday at 1 o'clock Arizona time, which will be 1 o'clock Pacific time on Monday, because daylight savings, they're all going to move their clocks up an hour. Arizona doesn't move clocks ever. So the Pacific time zone will be the same as the Phoenix time zone. So that will be at 1 o'clock in the afternoon live for members only. Thank you to Alan Lindis for your Super Chat contribution, as well as Captain Blinsky. Captain Blinsky contributed $10 via Super Chat and said, here's a little something, and no YouTube, you can't have 30%. Well, they're going to take that 30% whether you like it or not, but thank you. And Mario Coluccio became a member of our Tech Club. Welcome into the Tech Club, Mario. And Geraldo Quintana Rue has now been a member for 10 months. It says, happy Friday, all. Thank you for continuing your membership, Gerardo. Mark Gaines, thank you for your earlier Super Chat contribution, as well as Kevin Crowley. And I think that covers all of the contributions. I always like to give a shout out and say thank you to those who do it. I never ask for them, but when they come in, they're always appreciated. It's because of you guys that I can afford to go out on YouTube and buy tech stuff that I want to review or I want to share with you guys without being tied into some contract about when I have to publish it or what I'm allowed to say, blah, blah, blah. Really don't want to go down that road. I don't want to be a corporate puppet. I'll let the enthusiasts, the big enthusiast channels routinely do that. I'm not going to go on their turf. I'm not interested in making commercials for companies, but I am interested in finding good values for my customers and good values for my viewers. And anytime I see something that I think is a good value and you guys should be made aware of, well, that's what I'm trying to do here, whether the products get sent to me or I have to go and buy them one way or another. I want to present them to you. As a reminder, there is a PC giveaway going on. If you missed Thursday's video yesterday, March 9th, please go back and watch it. There are also some amazing sales that Dell is offering on their refurbished section of their website, and I've added a couple of lines of laptops. They've got laptops for $139, an entire laptop. That's refurbished, direct from the manufacturer at Dell. I make no commissions from Dell. Dell doesn't even know who I am. I'm doing that because I'm looking out for you guys. I think you would want to know if you were in the market for an inexpensive laptop. You can pick one up right now while Dell's got this special going on. And the links to find those deals are in the video description below yesterday's video, along with information on the PC giveaways we're doing. So if you haven't seen it yet, you certainly have time to go back and watch that. Thank you for watching. Thank you for your support. Thank you, Camera Girl, for your close-ups today.
You're welcome.
I will see you all the members, Monday at 1 o'clock, Phoenix, well, it'll be 1 o'clock Pacific time. I hope you'll join me then. Until then, that's it for now. Bye for now.